We're talking the Gypsy Blanchard story.
Today on Foster Life, the conversation starts It's Wednesday on Foster Life. How's everybody doing today?
Doing good.
We have Courtney and Tristan both today.
This is maybe the first time since our vacation.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the first time
yeah.
since the middle of
How
February.
exciting.
And it's supposed to be this way, but we have had vacations, we have had sickness, we have had appointments, we've had traffic, we've had all kinds of things happen, and so we are finally all back, and this is how it normally should be here today.
For
So,
three people, we've definitely been busy.
yeah, we have been busy. I mean, because we don't just have this, but we have a lot of things going on outside of this.
Yeah.
This doesn't pay our bills, so we have to do other things as well. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. I'm very busy.
So today we're talking Gypsy Blanchard and Dee Dee Blanchard. Story I know it's been a lot in the news lately. There's been an HBO special. There's been the Dr. Phil thing. There's been a little mini series. There's been a Lifetime movie about this. And what a lot of people don't know is that Gypsy and Dee Dee, when they first came to Missouri, they lived in our town.
Yes.
They lived in Aurora, Missouri. And, which makes sense. And I'm going to tell you why. It makes sense.
I'm interested to hear this one.
When I had surgery, major surgery 2 years ago, we got cards, we got food, we got all kinds of people bringing stuff by the house all the time. And we were fine financially. I mean, our income didn't change just because I had surgery, but we had an outpouring of people in the community helping us. And so it only makes sense that they would go to a community like this, because obviously there was an outpouring of kind people in Aurora, Missouri that helped them out and did a lot of things for them. And my friends have actually talked about that, how they gave this, or they did this, or they helped with this, or they did that. And so if you don't know the story, basically, Courtney, how does the story go?
So, when Gypsy Rose was a child, she, according to her mother, was diagnosed with
Cancer.
some type of cancer and
Muscular
muscular
dystrophy.
dystrophy. She was bound to a wheelchair. She was going through chemo. But essentially, this was all what's called Munchausen's by proxy, which is the intentional infliction of pain or medical issues upon a person in order to gain sympathy for the person inflicting that.
Right. So let me make it very clear. This child, from 3 on, had endured multiple surgeries, painful surgeries, had her esophagus rebuilt, had feeding tubes put in. If anybody's had a feeding tube, they're very painful, especially when they change them, and they can only be in there for so long, and then that's got to be changed. So it had feeding tubes, had all of these things done
She went through chemo.
that didn't necessarily need to be done. So the mom, one, was a,
Nut.
well, not only a nut, but she was just really good, like a master at manipulating.
Yeah, well, and that's the skill that a lot of people who endure Munchausen's by proxy, they are very good at manipulation. And one of the things about that is it's really hard to prove that it even happened,
Right?
you know, and because of that manipulation, that's why it's so hard to prove. Like, we were talking about it before shooting, about how she, you know, she would get a note from a doctor that she didn't like, and so she would switch doctors.
Right. So she would request, every time they would go see a doctor, the mom, Dee Dee Blanchard, would request the medical records to be sent to the home. So that's going to be any letters that were written by the doctor to other doctors, going to be all the information. And she would read that, and if she didn't like what it said, then they would just change their medical team.
I could see persuading the child so young to believe all these different things, but to persuade doctors, I mean, how much brain capacity do you have to have in order to persuade somebody who's like practiced this for
Right.
years into thinking that this child sitting here has
Right.
cancer?
The one doctor, the neurologist that was here in Springfield, he was part of the HBO special documentary. And the interesting thing that he said is after examining Gypsy Rose, that he could tell by the lower quadrants in her legs and the muscle mass there that she wasn't paralyzed.
Right.
But they had such a huge following on Facebook and had such a huge community support that he only notated it in his notes but never did anything else because he was afraid that he might lose his practice or people weren't going to believe him and that type of thing.
My concern with that is if your practice is so important,
Right.
but you've only just continued to inflict damage on someone else. Like,
Well-
where's the line in that?
Right. And kind of the thing that I don't understand, I would guess doctors are the same as foster parents because we have to report any
Yeah,
type of
mandated
abuse.
reporter.
Yeah, so we're a mandated reporter. So wouldn't that doctor be a mandated reporter?
Yeah.
And wouldn't this fall under that category? I mean, if she's coming to the doctor and saying she has muscular dystrophy and he's looking at her legs and muscle mass and stuff and saying, no, hold the phone. She doesn't.
And it's likely that he did call Children's Division and he did hotline this and do everything that he was supposed to do in regards to mandated reporting. Those things don't get out into the public. They're not allowed to tell the parent who hotlined it or anybody else. The only person who knows is the investigating social worker and then the social worker who would take on case management if the child were to come to care.
Right. So when we come back, we're going to dive in more to the story. And the reason we're talking about it on foster life is really Gypsy Rose. She was failed many times by many different agencies.
Yes.
And the outcome, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think she should be in prison. But that's just my opinion. And we'll explore more of that today when we come back after this.
On foster line.
Foster Life. Today we're talking about Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard. It's been so much in the news. And what is it called?
Munchausen's by proxy.
Munchausen
By proxy, so
Yeah.
by somebody else.
She's the smart one, and she tells us this stuff. So let's just go through kind of a list of the things that they received.
Okay.
They received a house
Yes.
from Habitat for Humanity, right?
At least 2 vehicles.
Yeah, 2 vehicles that we know about because friends.
That were handicap accessible.
Yeah, that we
The
know
price
that
of
our
those
friends,
vehicles are
right? Some stores they would go into, they would have carte blanche
Yeah.
of anything they wanted because they would say, "Oh, we just love this, but we can't afford this," and "Oh, well, we'll just give it to you." And so they kind of had the a la carte, all you can eat, whatever.
Oh, not to mention all you can eat. I mean,
Right.
they got meals from anybody and everybody.
Well, and Gypsy didn't eat them because she had a feeding tube,
Right.
which is very painful. They also got trips, like the Make-A-Wish type trips where they could go take trips and everything and fly trips here and there, and not just one, many trips here and there. And people were into Disney. I think Dee Dee was really into Disney and kind of did this fairy tale stuff with her, and so all kinds of Disney
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, the amount that Disney will spend on a child
Right.
who's terminally ill like that is extraordinary.
Yeah.
So I don't even want to think about how much financial money
Yep.
would have been put into a situation like that.
And the whole house was done in Disney. So here's some things that I found interesting when they interviewed Gypsy recently that I want to think about. One, they were really into these fairy tales and stuff, and she said, "I learned that life isn't a fairy tale, and I learned it the hard way." Because in most fairy tales, the bad guy usually perishes, right?
Yep.
And then life goes on happily ever after. And before we think about, oh, she got what she deserved, remember, she had been going through this and been told this over and over and over and over and over and over again. She ran away once. Dee Dee found her and told her that if she did it again, she's going to bust her legs and her arms and hands. So I really think that she probably was really scared and
I'm sure she was
didn't know.
really scared.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine being in that situation. But there are so many other things you have to take into account.
Right,
Like, she openly will say that she knew she could walk.
right.
And she knew she wasn't sick. And
She
that-
discovered it when she was 19.
Right, so when she was an adult who could make cognitive decisions on her own, she
Right.
knew she wasn't sick and she could walk. She then utilized the internet to find a boyfriend,
Right,
and then in the long run, had her boyfriend help her murder her mother.
right.
Those are all intentional steps to end the pain that she's in.
So what would it look like if she would have came into care?
I think life would have looked so different for her.
Uh-huh.
I mean, think about it, like, if one person had said, something's not right here, we need to bring her into care and figure out what's going on,
Right,
she would immediately would have been in a safe place.
right.
Somebody would have caught her walking.
Uh-huh.
She has openly said that her mom would catch her walking and then she'd get in big trouble. So, somebody would have caught her walking and knowing that she wasn't sick anymore. They would have then gone to the doctor and the
Right.
doctor would have been like, I don't think you're really sick. They would have taken all these tests and all of this would have come out. And she would have been able to get the mental health help she needs. Mom would have gotten some mental health help, probably been prosecuted,
Yeah.
that's the word I wanted, prosecuted, for this behavior that she's been inflicting for years on this child, and life would have been so different for her.
Right. One thing that Gypsy said to Dr. Phil is, my mom needs to be where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Meaning that she does not think that her mom deserved to die, but she has a better life than when she was with her mom. And let's bring this up. The girl is thriving in prison. Now, I know a lot of people just in the business that we're in that have been in prison and come out of prison and all of that. Not most of my inmates that I've worked with thrive in prison.
Right. I mean, that's valid. Most inmates don't thrive in prison. They become very institutionalized and they join gangs or they get involved in drugs, which you wouldn't think could happen in prison, but can.
Right.
And does. But I think that kind of goes to show that, you know, they had how many police officers out of the home
Right.
talking to her by herself. Social workers are mandated to talk to the child alone without any other person there.
But you never know if the threats, because there was abuse in that home.
Oh yeah.
And you know, she's very candid about what she could say and what she couldn't say and what she was allowed to say. I mean, there was very strict rules. When they went to a doctor, she was told, play with your Barbie and you're not allowed to say a word. And you let me do all the talking. That's a pretty, you know, and as a child, I could understand. I mean, one of the things that Dr. Phil suspects, and I think that Gypsy suspects, is when they were doing the feeding tube, that she was doing a bit of poisoning and stuff with medicines through that feeding tube to keep her ill enough and weak enough so that she could, you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
that she could play the part. So, you know, I have to think about that too, yeah. Workers were probably coming out to the house and talking to her alone, but if you're weak and you're being told, you know, don't say anything.
But
you know.
she felt bold enough to tell a man that she didn't know online
Right.
that she could walk and to have a sexual encounter with him
Right.
while standing,
Uh-huh.
but she couldn't tell a police officer that.
Right.
But just a random man, it was okay. Like, there's just so many things that don't add up
Right.
that
Well,
while I don't know if a
In
10-year
that
sentence
scenario,
is
it's
appropriate.
almost like maybe she thought the police and the doctors and everything was on the mom's side already, so she needed that outsider that's not around to be talking to her.
When we come back, we're talking more about Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard right here today.
Hi, I'm Mitchell. I'm from the Netherlands and we love foster care.
Welcome back to Foster Life. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm outside.
And
It's
inside.
Wednesday. Yeah, you can probably hear it kind of moving out there, but we're going to keep taping. We're talking about Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard. They were from our town. They moved to our town, Aurora, right after Hurricane Katrina. And you brought up an interesting point while we were at break that I never really thought about. Why didn't they go back to Louisiana?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I was like, I wonder how close social workers and Child Protective Services was to figuring out what was going on,
Right?
and that's why they didn't go back. Because as a social worker who's investigating, I don't often, unless I'm highly suspicious,
Right.
request records from another state. Unless those children come into care,
Right.
and then I have to request those records. So I kind of wonder, like, what was going on in Louisiana that Hurricane Katrina was kind of a godsend for them to get out of that area so that they could start anew here.
Right. So here's a lesson for foster parents that are out there watching right now. When kids come into care, don't always believe what the parents are telling you.
Yeah.
The dad. So Gypsy's dad, who lives in Louisiana, I've seen a lot of interviews with him. He seems like a really pretty well put together guy. He has a very nice wife. They have supported Gypsy through this. And I tell you, he has said that he carries a lot of guilt with this. His biggest downfall, anything Mama told him, he believed. So he had been told that she had the mentality of a 7-year-old. he was told that she probably wasn't going to live much past 18 years old. He was told that she had cancer. He was told that, but he never took the initiative
To follow up.
And make sure that he was being told correct information about his daughter.
Right.
And she endured some really painful surgeries. Imagine having your esophagus rebuilt because the mom was saying she couldn't keep any food down and everything. And so you had all these surgeries done. That just seems crazy.
And my question is, whenever they opened her up to do the reconstructive surgery, I mean, why didn't they just stop there if they see the esophagus and it's like, oh, look, there's nothing wrong?
Yeah, but in a lot of times, and I know just from being I've had a lot of medical stuff growing up, and so sometimes in the medical field it's not black and white. So if you're having these symptoms and everything looks good, sometimes they'll go and they'll try something to get rid of the symptom. For instance, there's been times where I've been in a lot of pain and they didn't really see anything on the MRI or CAT scan, but they've gone in, and because I have smaller organs than most people, there was a blockage like in my kidney or something that for most people it would be no big deal, but for me, because my organs are smaller and everything is smaller, it was a huge deal. So when they got in there, they saw that. So I could see where if you have a really manipulative person who can convince you that she can't keep any food down or whatnot, they might have been more of an exploratory type thing. We're going to try this to see if it helps.
Yeah, I guess that's possible. Probable.
Right. But to be able to convince doctors that all of this stuff was going on, that's what seems kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I don't believe that Dee Dee Blanchard got what she deserves. Obviously, mental illness is called mental illness for a reason. It's an illness. I'm gonna just tell you something real personal for me. And you guys know I loved my mom more than anything in this world. And she had a rare type of Parkinson's that affected the brain. And I'm gonna tell you, when the brain is not firing correctly, oh my gosh. My mother was a smart woman. She had an amazing career. She was paid a lot of money for her hard work and dedication. When she passed away, she was a lot like a child. She would repeat things over and over and over. She'd ask the same questions over and over and over. When that brain's not working correctly, holy crud. I never realized how important the brain was until I watched my mom die of this very, very rare disease. So do I think that Dee Dee got what she deserved? No, absolutely not. She had a mental illness. Do I think that Gypsy got what she deserved? No. I absolutely do not think that she should have went to prison. That's my feeling. And I'm going to tell you why. And then you guys can tell me what you think. She's been told this since she was 3 years old. She was severely abused. She went through a lot. I know what it's like to recover from lots of surgeries. I've had lots of surgeries. I had colon cancer. I had colon resection twice. I've had kidney surgeries. I've had all kinds of surgeries. That's a lot for anybody to endure, especially if you don't even need the surgery. I feel like she paid her price, and I think that we could have done her better. I'm not saying that she should have walked away and went free. He murdered somebody. And it was brutal. It wasn't like a couple of stabbings. She didn't do it. Her boyfriend did it. But she knew, and they planned it. But I think she should have gotten something, but I don't think that prison was the answer. Now, you can tell me how you guys feel.
I think my choice of wording of most things today has been pretty clear about how I feel.
Right.
I think the fact that she knew what situation she was actually in,
Uh-huh.
she knew how to get somebody to help her to kill her mother. She talked him into it, essentially. She planned it out, which is why I think she got the sentence she did, because it was planned, it was premeditated.
Well, that goes back to me thinking that she's kind of like her mother to persuade somebody online to kill somebody else's. I mean, that's almost as harsh as persuading doctors. That's the way I feel anyway.
I mean,
But if you're trained, if you've grown up that way your whole life, it's like me. I lived in a home where both my parents were really hard workers and they were dedicated and they were family people. Guess what? I'm a really hard worker. I'm dedicated. I'm a family person. That's how I was raised. Well, of course, if she's in that environment.
But that doesn't negate the fact. I mean, if you grow up watching your dad beat your wife,
Right?
or his wife, not your wife. If you grow up watching your dad beat his wife,
Okay, a little
and
harsh.
you grow up to beat your wife, you can't say, well, my dad did it and get off scot-free, right?
Yeah, I'm right.
So should she really get off scot-free for murdering her mother because she wanted out? When there were a multitude of ways, even though they didn't seem realistic or attainable to her, to get out of this situation.
Right. She ran away once, and Mom said she was going to break her legs and her arms.
Like
And
Well,
Exactly.
nobody would believe her anyway. I mean,
But what would have stopped her from just breaking her mom's leg to get away?
So do you
Most
think
people would
that
call
she
her
felt
crazy,
like her only way out was to kill her mom?
I mean, she probably did feel that way, but
I
that
feel
doesn't
like
make
she
it right.
felt that way for sure.
Right. The
Because-
boyfriend got, I think, he got like 3 life sentences
Yeah, I
or
mean,
something like that.
he-
I mean, he got,
He got what he
right.
But
justice
in
was
her
served in
mind,
that
she's
case.
probably thinking, well, they've said that I only have the brain of a 7-year-old for all my life. That's all they're going to believe if I say, yeah, this is what she did to me and this is why I left. And yeah, I can walk now, but they're still going to think that her mind's messed up.
So you don't think that if she went to a facility, like in Texas, I know was one, because I've had to research these for drug court. Because some of our drug court people have severe mental illness.
Yeah, I mean.
So they have like facilities that are like, they're like kind of like a residential facility where they go and they could get like 2 years of mental health treatment or something. Do you not think that we would be doing better by her? Because society failed her many times. So you would think that we would want to send her to a place like that and get her, wouldn't that be a better option than prison?
I honestly don't think that if a psychiatrist were to sit down with her, you would find a mental health condition that would have predated the murder.
Yeah.
Other than maybe post-traumatic stress disorder, which people who have post-traumatic stress disorder go on to live normal, productive lives without ever killing anybody.
Yeah.
So you couldn't even use that as a mental excuse to say, like, oh, I'm mentally ill, that's why this happened.
But
There were clear choices that were made to get to this point.
If Elizabeth Smart would have killed her captors, I do not believe that Elizabeth Smart would have went to jail. I don't. And there's many people that don't think that. And Dee Dee was her captor, and she had her convinced until the time she was 19 years old. And then once she realized it, Dee Dee, or Gypsy, wanted out.
But I think there's a difference, a clear difference in Elizabeth Smart and Gypsy Blanchard. Elizabeth Smart was captured, raped, tortured. I mean, endured something horrific. Not that Gypsy didn't. She endured something
She was
horrific.
tortured. Yeah, captured.
But
She was
when-
captured in her own home by her mother that she trusted.
right. But when she had the opportunity, when Elizabeth Smart had the opportunity,
Right?
and a police officer came and said to her, "What's going on?" She had been told, "If you tell anybody, I'll kill you. If you tell anybody, I'll kill your family." What did she do? She told the police officer. Gypsy had that opportunity time and time and time again to tell a social worker, a doctor, a police officer, and she didn't use it. I think that's the defining difference.
Right. Well, when we come back, we're talking more about Dee Dee Blanchard and Gypsy Rose, and we're going to talk about how the system failed Gypsy Rose right after this.
On Foster Life.
Foster TV is looking for 12 nonprofits in the United States that serve or work with foster and adoptive youth. Send us a short story or email about how you support the community.
So send your story today.
Welcome back to Foster Life. Today we are talking about Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard. Hot topic in the news, and a lot of you are probably wondering why are they talking about this on Foster Life today. One, unless you walk in their shoes, walk a mile in their shoes, none of us really know. You can think that she's supposed to be in prison. I can think that she's not supposed to be in prison. That's kind of how foster life or fostering goes.
Right.
Sometimes we get these kids into care. We think we have all the answers, and we don't necessarily have the answers. We don't actually know. Sometimes we're doing what we're doing here. We're just trying to put the puzzle pieces together and figuring it out. So let's talk about some of the ways that Gypsy was failed, because she was failed.
Yeah.
In many ways. The first way I think is obvious is the doctor.
I think it's her dad. I think that's number one.
Her
Her
dad.
dad failed her first, yeah.
So you think that
I'd have to agree with Courtney.
he should have been more involved and asked more questions?
I think he took mom's word too closely
Right.
and just allowed too much. And I know that's harsh because some dads are involved and they really want to be, but
Right.
I think that's the dad and the mom are the ones who are supposed to protect you the most.
Right.
Above
Well, at
doctors,
some
above
point,
social
wouldn't you
workers,
question something?
Yeah.
Like,
everything else. And I think he
it
has
goes
to be
from
able-
one thing to the next. You think at some point you'd be like, all right, let's see some kind of test or something
Right.
that proves this.
She had the very painful procedure to see if she would be diagnosed with muscular dystrophy, and she says that she still has the scar on her hip. It's very, very, very painful. As I was watching this interview, that doctor failed her.
Oh yeah.
Because it came back negative. What they suspect happened is Dee Dee got the letter that it was negative for muscular dystrophy, and then they changed doctors. But that doctor should have.
I mean, and that's kind of a failure in the system in general. Like
Right.
doctors don't talk to each other as much as they should.
Right.
Especially when it comes to things like muscular dystrophy, cancer, things that are life-threatening.
Right. And the mom was a master manipulator, because I'm going to tell you, with the Make-A-Wish thing, I volunteered for Make-A-Wish, and I've done a lot of work for Make-A-Wish. And as you look at my, my background, I did a lot of stuff with the Make-A-Wish Foundation and helped for those wishes to be granted. Those don't just happen. There has to be documentation from physicians for that to help. So the mom also was good at manipulating these physicians
Or
as
even
well.
forging.
Right. And so dad and the physicians failed her. There had been workers sent out to the home, and we don't know what that looked like, but I think probably a more intense investigation. But again, she was a master at manipulating. So our child welfare system kind of failed.
Well, and there's been times as an investigator when I've asked the family to sign waivers for things, like for me to call the doctor and make sure that they're getting proper medical care, like it's a medical neglect case, and like, hey, sign this so I can call and talk to the doctor. Why wasn't that done? Like, what stopped that from happening? Because then you have to think that a doctor would be like, I think she's faking it.
It's kind of a fine line. Because we take kids in that have medical needs. How me and my partner do it is probably a little different. There's a lot of people that would love to help us and do things for us and be a part of that. And we kind of just don't want that. Because we want our kids that have medical needs to feel normal.
Right.
So we don't want the extras. But I was talking to a really good friend of mine the other day who actually knows them, knows Gypsy and Dee Dee. But she also has another friend, and she said that their child has some disabilities. And she says, you know, they kind of just take every handout that they can get. And I could see where that would be kind of a good thing. You know, I guess I can see where you could fall into that trap. We just choose not to do that because we just want our kids to feel a sense of normalcy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, it totally makes sense.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, I don't want us sitting here talking about this to be the rotten apple in the basket.
Right.
You
No,
know,
no.
not everybody is out for just money or just attention. This happens very rarely.
Right.
Please don't stop donating to organizations that help people who need it, and don't stop being that person who buys groceries for somebody who
Right.
looks like they're in need, or
Yep.
don't stop being the person who gives a car to a family who needs it. Like,
Right.
continue to do that, even if it comes back that this is the type of situation, because you don't know the impact you make on people who actually need it,
Right.
and just don't let one rotten fruit spoil the bunch.
Right. I'll leave with this. There's this cute, wonderful girl that lived in our town, and she's in a wheelchair, and she's actually was with another foster family that's really, really close to us. And so Medicaid, like the wheelchairs, you only get them every so often. And she had outgrown her wheelchair, but Medicaid, it wasn't time for her to get a new wheelchair. So our church gathered around, because they're expensive.
Yeah,
You know how expensive they are. And so our church gathered around, and by the end of like a couple of Sundays, we were able to buy that wheelchair. That's totally different than what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And you should get involved. And if you're burnt, like you said, maybe you're setting an example for somebody else.
Right.
Because the story has a good to it.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a house, you know? They people gathered around them, they believed in them, and they helped them. Unfortunately, it was all false. The most impactful thing that I saw on the HBO documentary was the young neighbor girl that said, when I saw that she could walk when she went into court, I cried. And yeah, it affected a lot of people.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is don't let it burn you. But then also, on the other hand, when these kids come to your home, you never know what they've been told by their family.
Right.
You never know what they've been told over and over and over and over and over again. And sometimes when they have behaviors, we have to stop, sit back, and think, okay, why are they telling me this?
Yep.
What's happening? What's going on? Coming up Friday on Foster Life, I think we're going to have another adoption story, and we love those adoption stories. If you saw the Jennings adoption story this last Friday, what a great family. One of their kids went to Yale.
Yes.
The other one tried to get into Harvard and then went to Bible school and was a pastor. And they just have such a big, amazing story. If you didn't catch it last Friday, go to our YouTube channel, our website, or on Foster TV Facebook page, Daily Motion, Instagram, and you can watch it all.
It seems
right
like
there.
every single minute just kept getting more exciting and more exciting.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a show to watch for sure.
It's a good one. So this summer we'll be coming to your town if you want us there for Rob and Tristan's summer tour. And we're going to be doing workshops with foster parents, adoptive parents, and kinship parents. We're also going to be doing some workshops for bio parents. If you are watching and you have a child that's in foster care, we want to encourage you and help you to stay on the right track to getting your kids back. We'll see you on Friday right here on Foster Life.